when I came home to find two massive trucks blocking my garage without a word, warning, or permission. I almost lost it. But the real twist, that garage wasn't just mine, it was leased to the county sheriff's department. Asterisk, it had been one of those peaceful mornings that tricked you into thinking the world was still a decent place. The sky was cloudless, the air was crisp, and my Saturday to-do list was satisfyingly short. Grab groceries, refill the propane tank, and maybe treat myself to a coffee on the way back. I wasn't in a rush. The neighborhood was quiet, my garage was finally clean after a week of organizing, and the last thing on my mind was dealing with drama. But life has a funny way of flipping your calm upside down just when you start to enjoy it. As I turned onto my street, I noticed something odd before I even reached my driveway. From a distance it looked like there was some kind of delivery happening at my house, but I hadn't ordered anything. And when I got closer, my heart dropped into my stomach. There were two massive box trucks parked right in front of my garage. I pulled up and just stared for a moment. The trucks weren't just in the driveway, they were backed right up to the garage doors, as if someone had tried to block access completely. They didn't belong to any company I recognized. No logos, no business name, no signs of a move or delivery in progress. They were just sitting there, completely still, completely silent. At first I wondered if maybe something had gone wrong. Maybe a family nearby was moving and the drivers had parked temporarily by mistake. But then I noticed the locks, thick padlocks securing both rear doors on each truck. No one was coming back to load or unload anything anytime soon. I couldn't even pull into my driveway. I parked on the curb, got out and walked over to get a better look. My garage, cleaned, reorganized, and leased, was now completely inaccessible. The double doors were blocked so tightly there was barely a foot of space between the truck bumpers and the garage door panels. It wasn't accidental. Whoever parked these knew exactly what they were doing. For a second, I just stood there and stared, trying to keep my cool. Then I checked my security cameras. Nothing fancy, just a pair of motion sensor cams that covered the driveway and front door. I scrolled back through the footage on my phone and there it was, two trucks arriving. Around 11:43 p.m. the night before. No headlights, no beeping when backing up. They moved slow and silent, clearly driven by people who didn't want attention. Two people had parked them, both women. One got out, looked around, and walked off down the street, while the other locked up the trucks. They never came to my door. No knock, no note, nothing. That's when the irritation turned to anger. I wasn't just upset about the inconvenience. This wasn't just someone blocking my driveway or being lazy about street parking. This was someone deciding that my property, my garage, was free storage for them to use, like I didn't exist. Like my home was just an empty lot waiting for their trucks to move in. And the worst part, this garage wasn't even mine to use anymore. Not really. I had signed a lease with the county sheriff's department 6 months ago. After the last storm season, the sheriff's office had been looking for local storage spaces for backup gear and equipment. My garage was large, secure, and sat unused most of the time. The lease was official and signed, and they paid me monthly to keep certain gear inside, mostly storage containers, temporary lockers, and occasionally a vehicle during overflow operations. That garage was technically government lease property, and now it was blocked. I walked to the house next door, rang the bell, and asked if they knew anything. Mr. Gordon, an older guy who spent most of his time gardening, said he'd seen the trucks pull in late last night. Some woman from 2 streets over, he said. She walked down the road after parking them, didn't say much. Just mentioned something about needing a place to put her daughter's stuff. That's all I needed to hear. I pulled up the neighborhood map and tried to guess who it might be. I didn't know everyone by name, but I had a good idea of who had older kids or might be involved in a move. It didn't take long. I found the house with a moving van still in the driveway and boxes piled near the side. I knocked. A woman in her mid-40s with short, stiff blonde hair and sharp eyes opened the door. She looked annoyed before I even spoke. "I'm your neighbor from over on Ridgeview," I said, keeping my tone polite. "Did you park 2 box trucks in my driveway last night?" She blinked at me like I was the one out of line. "Yes," she said plainly, "just for a few days. My daughter's moving back from college and we didn't have space for her things." "What's the big deal?" "The big deal," I said, my patience already thin, "is that you parked 2 giant trucks in front of my garage without asking. You blocked access to a space I lease out. You can't just take over someone's driveway like that." She shrugged, like I was being dramatic. "You weren't using it, it's just sitting there, and it's not like we damaged anything." "It's not about damage," I said. "It's trespassing. And that garage is leased to law enforcement. You're interfering with a government storage facility." That made her pause. Her face twitched, the first sign of concern. "I'm giving you 24 hours to move the trucks," I said, still calm, but clear. "After that, I'm contacting the county sheriff." She narrowed her eyes. "Are you serious? Over a couple of trucks you could have just helped a neighbor out. You could have asked." I shot back. "You didn't." I walked away. My hands were shaking a little, not from fear but from the sheer nerve of it all. She had acted like my property was hers to use just because it was convenient. And now that she'd been caught, she played the victim. That kind of entitlement was hard to deal with. People who didn't ask, didn't apologize, and acted offended when you enforced basic boundaries. Back home, I made sure my paperwork was in order. Lease agreement with the sheriff's department, check photos of the trucks, check security footage, backed up and ready. I wasn't bluffing, and I had no plans to let this go. That night, the trucks stayed right where they were. No attempt to move them, no apology, no contact. By Sunday morning, I had made up my mind. I sent a text to Deputy Larson, the sheriff's office contact who handled the lease paperwork. I didn't call it an emergency, just a lease-related obstruction. He responded in minutes and said he'd be by to take a look. When Deputy Larson showed up around noon, he took one glance at the trucks and whistled. "Those yours?" he asked. "Nope," I said. "Neighbor, from a few streets over. Parked them here without permission." He walked around the trucks taking photos and notes. "You said the garage is blocked. You can't access the interior, correct? The vehicles are unauthorized and I haven't been able to use the garage since Saturday morning." He nodded. "That's a problem. It's county leased property. Interfering with it even by blocking access can be considered obstruction. We'll file a report and move forward." I stood silently as he slapped a notice on each truck and radioed dispatch to initiate the tow process. He kept everything calm, professional, but I could tell he was annoyed too. Situations like this weren't just a nuisance, they were liabilities. He packed up. He looked over at me and said, "Thanks for reporting it properly. A lot of people would have just called a tow company and caused a mess. We'll handle it from here." And just like that, things were moving fast. I knew the real fallout hadn't even begun yet, but I was done playing the nice neighbor. The rules were clear. She had crossed a line, and the sheriff's tow trucks were already on their way. The morning the tow truck arrived felt heavier than usual, as if the air itself was waiting for a confrontation. I had just poured my coffee when I heard the unmistakable diesel rumble outside. I peeked through the blinds and saw the big rig slowly backing into my driveway, lights flashing and chains rattling. It was a county-authorized towing vehicle, massive with reinforced hooks and winches built to move stubborn obstacles like these box trucks. I stepped outside, coffee in hand, just in time to see the driver hop out. He was a middle-aged man, with weather-beaten skin and mirrored sunglasses, clipboard in one hand, work gloves in the other. "You the property owner?" he asked. "Technically, yes," I replied, walking up to him. "But this garage is leased to the county sheriff's department. They sent you." "Yup, got the authorization this morning. Got the notice tags right here. These trucks have no business being here." I gave a satisfied nod. "You won't will get any argument from me." The driver looked over both box trucks and scratched his head. "They're heavy, but manageable. Whoever parked these wasn't trying to be subtle. They were trying to claim this space." He wasn't wrong. The moment he started unspooling his chains, I noticed movement from down the street. Stacy, she came storming up the sidewalk in fuzzy slippers and a thick pink robe, yelling before she even reached the driveway. "You've got to be kidding me." The tow driver didn't even look at her. He was already wrapping the front wheel of the first truck. Stacy turned on me instead. "I told you it was just for a few days. I was going to move them tomorrow." "No, Stacy," I said calmly. "You told me nothing. You never asked. And you've had 3 days already. You ignored every warning. This is outrageous. That truck has my daughter's things in it. Clothes, books, furniture. This is a violation." "It's not a violation," I said flatly. "It's legal removal of unauthorized vehicles from government-leased property. You parked them on top of law enforcement equipment storage. This isn't just my garage, it's a county facility." Stacy turned to the tow truck driver, now crouched and locking the chains on the second vehicle. "Stop this right now. I haven't given permission for you to tow these. You don't have the authority." He stood up slowly, removing his sunglasses. "Ma'am," he said, steady but firm, "I don't need your permission. I have it from the county sheriff's department. These vehicles are parked illegally and are obstructing government operations. You can call the office if you want, but this tow's already authorized." He was fuming, her face red and her hands clenched into tiny fists. "I'll sue. I'll take this to court. This is harassment." The driver chuckled. "Lady, we get that threat 3 times a week. Take it up with the county." The chains tightened, metal groaning as the first truck inched upward. Its tires, lifting slowly from the driveway, was an oddly satisfying sight. Justice in motion. Stacy stormed off, mumbling obscenities under her breath, stomping back to her house. I stayed where I was, watching the entire process. I didn't want to miss a second. After both trucks were loaded and secured, the driver gave me a quick wave. "They'll be held at the impound lot. If she wants them back, she can pay the fees and explain herself to the sheriff's office. Thanks for your cooperation." "No, thank you," I said, genuinely grateful that he pulled away. The neighborhood seemed unusually quiet. A few people peeked out their windows. One neighbor from across the street gave me a thumbs up. Another couple walking their dog gave me a sympathetic nod. I could feel it. Word was already spreading, not just about the trucks or the tow, but about how I handled it. Calm, legal, firm. I went back inside and sat down, coffee long since cold, and exhaled deeply. The drama had escalated fast, but I had handled it right. Still, I knew it wasn't over people like Stacy didn't just walk away. They plotted, they retaliated. I had a feeling she wouldn't forget this embarrassment easily. Sure enough, that same evening I received a knock at the door. I opened it to find Stacy's husband, Steve, standing awkwardly with his hands in his pockets. I didn't know him. Well, he usually kept to himself, but now he looked uncomfortable, like he'd been sent to do damage control. Hey, sorry to bother you, he started. Stacy's pretty upset about the whole thing. She made that clear, I replied, not inviting him in. He nodded. I get it, she should have asked, he just panicked. Our daughter came home sooner than expected and she didn't plan well. I told her it wasn't a good idea, but, well, you know how it goes. Not really, I said, because when I have a problem, I don't solve it by hijacking someone else's property. He gave a weak chuckle. Yeah, fair point. I gave her a warning. She ignored it, and those trucks were blocking access to a facility leased by the sheriff's department. It's not just about me. I know, he said quickly. I told her that too. I just wanted to say we'll take care of the fees. We're not trying to cause more trouble. Just maybe go a little easy on her. She's embarrassed and she should apologize. I said to me, and maybe to the sheriff's department too. He nodded. I'll talk to her. And with that he left. No apology, no real ownership, just a half-hearted effort to smooth things over. I wasn't expecting anything more. That night, I received an email from Deputy Larson. Simple and professional. Mr. Carson, the unauthorized vehicles have been successfully removed. A formal report has been logged, and the impound fees will be handled through proper channels. Thank you again for your cooperation and prompt reporting of the issue. We appreciate your adherence to the lease terms and your assistance in protecting departmental property. Regards, Deputy Larson County Sheriff's Department. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. It felt good, no, I had played it by the book and come out on top. I wasn't a confrontational guy, but I believed in boundaries. In respect, and if someone like Stacy couldn't see that, then maybe this entire incident was exactly what she needed. But I also knew one thing for sure. People like her didn't let go that easily. She had been humiliated in front of the neighborhood. Her entitled plan had backfired, and something told me that her next move wasn't going to be about trucks, it would be personal. She had picked the wrong garage to mess with, and I was just getting started. The week after the trucks were towed was oddly peaceful. Too peaceful. Stacy hadn't come storming back. There were no more screaming matches, no passive-aggressive notes on my door, and no visits from Steve trying to smooth things over. For a moment, I allowed myself to think maybe, just maybe, they had learned their lesson and were ready to let it go. But deep down, I knew better. Silence wasn't surrender. It was planning. On Thursday morning, I stepped out onto the porch to water the plants and found something strange. My mailbox was slightly crooked. At first glance, I figured maybe a teenager on a bike had bumped it. But when I reached out to straighten it, I noticed the base had been loosened. The screws were halfway pulled out, wobbling in the soil like someone had worked on it intentionally. Not a big act of vandalism, just enough to be annoying. Just enough to make a point. I tightened the bolts and went about my day. But the next morning, it happened again. This time the flag on the box was snapped clean off. Not bent, snapped. I checked the camera footage, but whoever did it stayed out of frame. Probably came from the blind spot to the side of the yard. Okay, I thought, so that's the game now. 2 days later, I came out to find my trash cans kicked over, trash scattered across the lawn. Nothing stolen, no real damage, just a mess, and the kind of irritation that makes your blood boil in small, slow drops. Now, I had no proof it was Stacy, but the pattern was all too convenient, especially after the embarrassment with the trucks. She wasn't the type to confront directly anymore, no. She wanted to sting me with petty little jabs, the kind that couldn't be traced but sent a message all the same. The final straw came on a Sunday evening. I returned home from dinner with my sister to find a fake parking ticket slapped onto the windshield of my truck. It looked official at first, Glancer engine white, even had a barcode, but the closer I looked, the more I realized it was homemade. The paper was regular printer stock, and the seal was just a blurry clip-art version of the sheriff's badge. It read, "Notice of illegal parking. This vehicle has been reported multiple times for violating neighborhood guidelines." Continued, "Abuse will be met with action. No department name, no contact information, no legal warning, just an empty threat dressed up in fake authority." I couldn't help but laugh out loud. She had gone from silently dumping trucks in my driveway to poorly forged parking notices. The creativity was low, but the intent was clear. So, I did something that I knew would hit harder than any back-and-forth argument or confrontation. I called Deputy Larson again. This time, I didn't just report the impound aftermath. I told him about the loose mailbox, the vandalized trash cans, the fake ticket. I explained that while I had no hard proof, it was my neighbor. The timeline and context strongly suggested retaliation. Larson listened patiently, then said, "You've been cooperative, respectful, and by the book through all this. I'll have someone from our community officer division come out and log everything. If she escalates, we'll be ready." 2 days later, Officer Trina Wells, a community liaison with the department, showed up at my door. She wasn't in full uniform, just a plain polo with the badge embroidered on the chest, clipboard in hand. She had a friendly smile but sharp eyes, like she missed nothing. Mind walking me through everything from the beginning? She asked, so I did. From the trucks to the mailbox to the trash and the fake ticket. She nodded, took notes, and snapped a few photos for documentation. We get situations like this more than you'd think, she said, scribbling something down. What usually starts as a boundary issue turns into a personal grudge. You're doing the right thing by not engaging directly. Feels like I'm being punished for standing up for my own property, I muttered. You are, she said, bluntly, but we have ways of dealing with that. After she left, I felt better, not just because I had law enforcement backing me up, but because I wasn't alone in this anymore. Stacy could throw her tantrums in secret all she wanted. Every incident was now being logged and attached to a growing report. If she crossed a bigger line, it wouldn't be her word against mine. It would be her against paper, time-stamped and witnessed still. It didn't mean I wasn't on edge. The next few days were quiet again, which only made me more suspicious. Every time I pulled into the driveway or walked past the hedges near Stacy's place, I half expected another note or some kind of childish trick, but there was nothing. No garbage tossed in the yard, no more damage to the mailbox. Just silence. Then one morning, I opened my email and found something that made my stomach twist, an official notice from the Homeowners Association. Apparently, a concerned resident had submitted a formal complaint against me. The complaint accused me of operating a business from home, which, according to the bylaws, was prohibited without a special permit. I didn't operate a business. I wasn't selling anything, running a daycare, or turning my garage into a welding shop. But I knew exactly what this was about. The trucks, the leased. The complaint alleged that I was leasing space to a third party, which was a stretch, sure, but technically true. I had leased my garage to the sheriff's department, a government entity, for secure storage, not commercial use. Still, HOAs were a strange beast. Even the flimsiest complaints triggered formal reviews. I had to attend a board meeting the following week to explain my arrangement. It was Stacy. Had to be. No one else had a reason to push this hard. So I did what I always did. I got ahead of it. I printed the lease documents, gathered the email correspondence from the sheriff's office, and even got a signed letter from Deputy Larson explaining the arrangement and how it helped local emergency preparedness. When the HOA meeting rolled around, I walked in calm, collected, and over-prepared. Stacy wasn't there, but I saw her fingerprints all over the complaint. Her phrasing, her tone. The board members took turns reviewing my paperwork, and it didn't take long for the tide to turn. This isn't a business, one of the board members said plainly. You're not profiting from public traffic or sales. It's a government lease. If anything, you're helping. Another board member asked, do they access the garage often? Maybe once a month? I said, sometimes less. They're respectful. They never block roads, and the garage remains locked and secure. Within 20 minutes, the complaint was dismissed. No violation. No fines. Not even a warning. Before I left, one of the board members pulled me aside. Don't let this discourage you. It's pretty clear someone's trying to weaponize the rules against you. I know exactly who, I said. He smiled. Well, keep documenting everything, and for what it's worth, that lease Metov just saved your case. I walked out of that meeting not just relieved, but determined. Stacy had tried to get me through the backdoor, sabotage HOA complaints, fake violations, and failed. Everything she threw at me either bounced back or ended up strengthening my position. The message was clear. I wasn't going anywhere, and neither was that lease. The morning after the HOA complaint was dismissed, I was back in my driveway, sweeping up the last of some fallen leaves when I heard the familiar crunch of Stacy's shoes against the pavement. She wasn't alone. A taller man in a navy suit walked beside her, carrying a leather folder and a clipboard. She wasn't even trying to be subtle about it. She pointed directly at my garage as they walked past, her voice rising just enough to make sure I heard. And that's where the problem is. I didn't engage. Not yet. But I kept watching from the corner of my eye as they stopped 2 doors down and knocked on Mr. Gordon's door. They stood there chatting for a few minutes before the man jotted something down in his folder. Then they moved on to the next neighbor. Door to door. She was trying to build a case by midday. 3 different neighbors had texted me with a heads up, hey, just FYI, Stacy came by asking about your garage. Another one said she was trying to gather signatures for something. Whatever her plan was, it was clear she was stepping things up. This wasn't just about trucks anymore. Stacy wanted me out, but she wasn't going to get her wish that night. I did a little digging. I found out that the man in the suit was Peter Langdon, an HOA consultant, not even a board member. Apparently, Stacy had hired him to help draft a formal petition to amend the HOA rules. According to what one neighbor overheard, she wanted new language added to restrict leasing any part of a private property to government entities. Her argument disrupts the community dynamic. What she really meant was, she didn't like being told no. She was trying to pass a rule specifically to target me in my arrangement with the sheriff's department. It was laughable, petty, and desperate, but I knew better than to dismiss It outright HOA politics were weird. All it took was the right wording, a few scared homeowners, and a majority vote to pass something that could turn into a real headache. So I decided to get ahead of it again the next day. I printed out a clear, polite one-page letter and hand-delivered it to every home in the neighborhood. I didn't attack Stacy or name her. I just explained the facts. The garage was legally leased to the county sheriff's department for secure, low-traffic storage. The arrangement had been in place for over a year without incident until the trucks showed up. The sheriff's office had even provided a letter of appreciation for helping with equipment storage. There was no public access, no business conducted, and no impact to the neighborhood's peace. I included a copy of the thank you letter from Deputy Larson and offered to answer any questions if neighbors had concerns. That evening, my phone lit up with messages of support. People appreciated the transparency. Some even thanked me for helping the sheriff's department. One neighbor wrote, "Frankly, we feel safer knowing law enforcement has a presence nearby." Still, Stacy wasn't backing down. 3 days later, a formal petition showed up in my mailbox, delivered by hand and unsigned. It stated that several residents were seeking an emergency HOA vote to amend the rules. The wording was vague but strategic. It proposed banning long-term leasing of any property structure to outside entities not residing on the premises. The language was clearly aimed at me, but written just wide enough to avoid sounding personal. Classic HOA maneuvering. I took the petition straight to the HOA office. Lisa, the office administrator, recognized the wording immediately and rolled her eyes. "She's really pushing this," Lisa said, "but unless she gets enough valid signatures, we won't call a vote. And even if we did, it has to pass by 2/3 of the neighborhood." "That's a high bar." "Still," I said, "I want it on record that I object to this proposal. It's targeted and retaliatory." "You're not the only one," Lisa said with a smirk. "You've got more neighbors behind you than she thinks." I thanked her and left, but I wasn't done. That night, I called Deputy Larson. "I think you should know," I said. "My neighbor is trying to push a new HOA rule that would ban leasing to law enforcement." There was a pause, then Larson said, "Interesting. She's using legal routes, but it's targeted." She hired a consultant and started collecting signatures. "I don't know how far it'll go, but if it passes, it might impact your storage access." "Thanks for the heads up," he said. "We'll review our side. The county has the right to lease private storage under civil agreement. But if the HOA rules shift, we'll need to check compatibility. What happens if they force me to terminate the lease?" Larson didn't answer right away. When he spoke again, his tone had changed, more thoughtful. "You may not need to worry. We might have a reason to escalate our presence there anyway." "What do you mean?" I asked. "I mean, we've been keeping an eye on your neighbor, Mr. Carson, and not just because of your complaint. She's drawn attention before property disputes, aggressive behavior, reports of threatening notes. You're not the first." That got my attention. "You're saying she's already on your radar in an unofficial sense?" "Yes," he replied, "but your situation helps establish a pattern. If she continues to harass you or use HOA mechanisms to retaliate, it could cross into civil harassment or misuse of governance." I exhaled slowly. "So what do I do?" "Keep documenting. Stay professional. If it escalates again, let us know." For the next week I did just that. I stayed quiet. No retaliation, no confrontations, just observation. And then came the slipdash up. One evening I came home from work to find that someone had spray painted the words "Gov Snitch" on the side of my trash bin. It wasn't bold or large, done in small, angry letters on the lid, but the message was clear. And this time, I had it on camera. The footage wasn't crystal clear, but it was enough. The figure in the hoodie walking across the lawn at 2:13 a.m. had the same height, gait, and distinctive limp as Stacy. She tried to hide under the shadow of the trees, but she'd forgotten about the new motion-activated light I'd installed near the driveway. I didn't even hesitate. I sent the video straight to Officer Trina Wells and followed up with Deputy Larson. Within 2 days, they knocked on Stacy's door. I watched from the window as she opened it, wide-eyed and feigning surprise. The moment she saw the clipboard in Officer Wells's hands, her expression shifted flat, defensive, calculating. It was a short conversation, 10 minutes at most. But when the officers left, they didn't look amused. Later that evening, I got a call from Officer Wells. "We've issued her a formal warning," she said. "Any further incidents, and we'll consider pursuing a civil harassment order." And for the record, we're noting the HOA petition as part of the behavior pattern. I felt like a weight had been lifted. Stacy had taken it too far, and now it was official. Later that week, the HOA quietly informed residents that the petition to amend leasing rules had been withdrawn due to lack of qualified signatures. Word was, several neighbors who had originally signed changed their minds after hearing what Stacy was really up to. A few even came by to apologize. One of them, Mrs. Holloway from 3 doors down, brought me a peach cobbler and said, "I should have asked more questions. She made it sound like you were running some kind of bootleg warehouse." "I'm sorry," I laughed. "Don't worry. The sheriff's gear is safer than ever." She grinned. "Glad someone around here has some sense." As summer rolled in, things finally settled. The garage lease remained. The HOA backed off. Stacy, while still living a few streets away, kept her head down in her distance. She'd picked a fight she couldn't win, and had done it all without breaking a single rule. 3 months passed. No trucks, no notes, no vandalism, not a single sideways glance from Stacy. The neighborhood had returned to the kind of peace most people take for granted until they lose it. The birds chirped, the sprinklers ticked. Mr. Gordon, next door, was back to watering his front lawn at precisely 6:15 a.m., humming some old country tune. The only real reminder of what had happened was the new motion-detecting security light on the side of my house and the updated surveillance system with infrared capability I'd installed just in case Stacy ever forgot her lesson, but she didn't. In fact, no one had seen her much since the spray paint incident. The sheriff's department's formal warning had sent a chill down her spine and through her reputation. People didn't say much to her anymore. Some avoided her. A few unfriendly neighbors still nodded politely, but even that felt more out of obligation than respect. As for me, I wasn't interested in revenge. I never was. I just wanted my home to be mine again without intrusion, without entitlement, without someone thinking they could hijack my space for their convenience. That's exactly what I got. Deputy Larson continued leasing the garage on behalf of the sheriff's department. He'd stop by once a month, sometimes with a colleague, to check in, move a few crates, and rotate out their mobile gear. Every visit was professional and respectful. The sheriff's vehicles never made noise. They never stayed longer than necessary. In fact, more than a few neighbors had told me they actually felt safer knowing that a corner of our neighborhood quietly supported emergency response operations. One afternoon, Larson mentioned something that stuck with me. He said, closing up the garage after checking inventory. A lot of people don't realize how helpful these small partnerships are. Most neighborhoods wouldn't even allow us in, but this has been one of our smoothest arrangements. Not everyone agrees, I said with a smirk. Larson chuckled. Maybe not. But people get used to things. Once the noise dies down and folks see it doesn't affect them, they move on. That, more than anything, had been the truth of this whole saga. Stacy had gone to war over trucks. She had no right to park, and rules she tried to rewrite. And in the end, all she accomplished was burning every bridge she had in a neighborhood that once politely tolerated her. But I wasn't naive. A new peace could be temporary, and I was proven right. One crisp Saturday morning, it was just before 9 a.m. when I heard a knock at the door. Not a delivery knock. Not a friend. 3 quick raps, hesitant, but purposeful. I looked through the PEEPHOLE. Stacy. Her arms were crossed, her face unreadable. Not angry this time. Not smug either. Just ... tired. I opened the door, keeping my foot lightly braced behind it. Morning, I said evenly. Can I talk to you for a minute? I studied her face. Her eyes were a little sunken, hair messier than usual. No clipboard, no smug expression. Just a neighbor who looked like she'd finally run out of steam. I nodded and stepped outside, closing the door behind me. I'm not here to start anything, she said quickly. I just wanted to say something and then I'll go. Okay, she took a breath. I messed up. That caught me off guard. Not just the words, but how quietly she said them. I didn't think it was a big deal at first, she continued. The trucks. I figured, it's just space, no harm, right? But I knew I should have asked. I knew it wasn't mine to use. I just didn't want to deal with moving costs and my daughter's stuff sitting out in the open. And then when you called the sheriff, when I followed the law, I interjected. She winced but nodded. Yes, when you followed the law. I took it personally. I thought you were trying to humiliate me, so I pushed back. The mailbox ... the trash ... the fake ticket. That was me. I know. She looked down. I thought I could get the HOA on my side. That if I pushed hard enough, people would blame you instead of me. But I was wrong. They saw right through it. For the first time, I felt a sliver of something I hadn't expected. Pity. You burned a lot of trust, Stacy. I know, she said again. I wanted to apologize. Not because someone made me. Not because the cops scared me. Just because. I get it now. I was wrong. And I'm sorry. I didn't say anything right away. She stood there quietly, waiting like she genuinely expected me to slam the door in her face, but I did in single quotes D. Instead. I said, thank you. Her eyes darted up. I appreciate the apology, I added, and I hope you mean it. I do. We stood in silence for a moment. Then she stepped back. I'll leave you alone. I just wanted to say it. She turned and walked down the sidewalk, back toward her home. No drama, no spectacle. Just a quiet retreat. I watched until she disappeared around the corner, back inside. I sat down on the couch and exhaled. Deeply, not because I was relieved, but because I finally believed it was over. The trucks, the sabotage, the HOA nonsense, the harassment, it had all come to a close, not with a bang, but with a tired knock and a quiet apology. In the weeks that followed, Stacy kept to herself. She didn't speak to me again, but she also didn't cause any more trouble. She passed by on her walks with a polite nod, and eventually, even that faded to nothing. I didn't need a friendship with her, just peace, and now at last I had it. The garage remained leased to the sheriffs, the department for another year, then 2. They eventually moved their storage to a newly built municipal facility outside town, When the lease ended, I turned the garage into a personal workshop, a quiet place for woodworking and restoring an old '79 pickup I'd inherited from my grandfather. It felt good to reclaim the space on my own terms. Occasionally, someone in the neighborhood would still bring up the truck saga, usually over a beer or at a barbecue, and everyone would laugh. Some people called it garage, others referred to it as the time the sheriff moved in. But the message was always the same: respect your neighbors or you'll learn who they really are. And as for Stacy, well, she never parked another thing on someone else's property again. Enjoyed this real-life inspired drama. For more powerful stories like this, like, share, comment, and subscribe to our channel, Bright Reality. Let's uncover the truth, one bold story at a time.